Yeah, let's be honest, the Andorra game was a dog with fleas, but we have to put some perspective on it. As Thomas Tuchel said, they won the game, they got the points in qualifying, and they move on. Joining us now, former England defender, and he'll be part of our commentary team tonight, of course, it's Stuart Pearce. Hi, Stu.
Hey, Stuart.
How you doing, gents?
Yeah, good, thank you.
We're not bad. Yeah, look, we can't dress it up. We heard what Aid had to say there. It wasn't at all entertaining, but are you of that school that tries to put a bit of perspective on it like the manager did there?
Yes, I give the sort of managers, coaches side of things, and I think he's done that in saying, look, no goals conceded in 3 games and 9 points, brilliant. But I tell you what, it was a woeful performance the other day against Andorra. I've got to say, you can't brush that up, and it almost sends us into a friendly match against Senegal under a little bit of pressure, bizarrely.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be changes tonight, though, which is good. I mean, with Saka and stuff, there'll be players back this evening, so that should make a difference. It should be a good atmosphere as well. You know that ground very well. And I think, outside of Wembley, people feel starved of international football. And I think the crowd will really get England going tonight.
I certainly hope so. If obviously the Nottingham public bring what they bring to the league games as such and the atmosphere that they generate, it'll be a fantastic occasion. And I'm pleased that taking an England game there, I think with the season they've had at Forest, it's a nice way to sort of, a nice pat on the back, if you like.
I think what I was worrying about Saturday, and I don't know what will happen tonight, Stuart, is that the way he wants to play, he doesn't seem to be able to get that across yet. There didn't seem to be any shape, any different way that they were playing at all. I don't know how he combats that in the short time he's had between that game and this one. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, when I looked at the lineup from sort of probably the back 3, I think it was a back 3. Some say that Curtis Jones was at right back. He was never there any time during the day. But I think it was a back 3. Going forward, I thought, okay, it's fair enough. I think the 2 wide players kept their width really well. Madueke probably was our standout player.
He was good,
But where the problem lied for me was the back 3 almost, and the 2 wide players of the 3 being Concha on the right-hand side, who's more of a centre-half and didn't really want to advance with the ball, and Reece James on the left-hand side, playing on the opposite side to what he's naturally used to. Those 2, in my opinion, offered the opportunity to really drive at the opposition, stroke the ball into the wide players nice and quickly, encouraging them to get a one-on-one scenarios, and they didn't do that regularly enough. I can't remember any time that either of them went and asked questions of the midfield players or drew a midfield player onto them to free space up behind that. And I think that was a big problem for us. I thought he'd change it at half-time, but he didn't, and I think continually we built up too slowly.
Yeah, again, that reliance on Kane to get us out of jail as he did the other night. I mean, they talked a lot about alternatives, Stuart. I wonder if he'll have a look at Ivan Toney this evening at some point, whether he'll get a bit of game time.
Well, I've got to say, if you put in Ivan Toney in the squad, you just as well play him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been away in Saudi. I think Thomas said he's not seen him actually play live over the period that he's been in charge. So it's an ideal opportunity. I don't think we need to know anything more about Harry Kane, if I'm being honest.
No.
We know exactly what he can and can't do. So that would make more sense. And there's probably 1 or 2 players that need to have good performances within the ranks if they want to stake a claim for next summer.
I don't know who put this Senegal friendly in tonight, but I think it's such bad timing anyway. It's such, just before the summer, they want to go and rest their legs. They've got a sort of summer off before the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
They've still got more time off than they usually do. So I don't know what it's like going into a game like this, Stuart. You can tell us when you just don't want to get injured, do you? But Senegal are going to be up for it. Every game against England, every team ups their game, don't they? It's not going to want to get injured. How do you give yourself fully to a performance when you don't want to get injured?
It's a difficult one for me because you can't sell that to me and my mentality.
No,
my
yeah.
mentality
Asking the
is
wrong person there, actually.
yeah, get someone else on if you want to talk about it not meaning a great deal for him to play for England. It's really difficult because I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I've got an opportunity here in front of a new manager if I get selected to play well, which will give me more of an opportunity to stake a claim, A, for the next game, and secondary, to want to be part of his squad for a World Cup next summer, you know, and that's the only encouragement and inspiration you should want.
No, you're right. I mean, you think back to Italia 90, Gaza was not in that squad, was he? A couple of good pre-tournament performances against Czechoslovakia at the time. So, you know, you can play your way in. You can offer something.
But that performance on Saturday almost puts them in a position where he can't really take many risks because he sort of has to get at least a draw tonight.
I mean, if they'd won 3 or 4-0 on Friday, tonight you'd think, okay, if they end up drawing, even if it's a friendly, let's try a few things. But it kind of has, I think there's an expectation tonight. They have to put in a performance and get a win.
Well, put it this way, we played Andorra at the weekend and you looked, and if anything, you're talking about playing your way in. On Cole Palmer's performance, he's probably played himself out.
Yeah.
It was such a lacklustre performance by him, and I don't think he actually knew what the game needed from him. You know, because he had plenty of time, he slowed down to a tempo that was acceptable to Andorra, and that's the last thing you need to do. And you can play yourself out as much as play yourself in, by the way.
Can you cut him any slack? He was playing out of position. It's not, you know, he doesn't tend to play on the left like that. I mean, I know it's a minor thing, but you're not cutting him any slack, do you know?
No, the answer to the question is no. Listen, whatever position you can play, you can play with drive and energy and oomph, you know, and I don't think he'd done himself any justice, you know, but he was among quite a few that once again, the same. You can only say Madueke, maybe Rodgers as well, Kane got his goal. They're the only three that you could probably turn around and say, you know what, you've come out and done what was needed of you.
But my frustration as a fan, I don't know about you Paul, is that why are we playing players out of position? Tuchel's been bought in on an 18-month contract to win the World Cup, which is in a year's time. He should be using every single opportunity. He gets very little time with the players anyway. Should be using every single opportunity he gets to play the formation he's going to play with the players in those positions. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem we suffer, and it's a great problem to have, we've got so many good players that want to play at number 10, if you like, you know. And I think when you're playing against teams that are banking up, you need 2 wide players that are going to actually stay out wide. And I thought, credit to Madueke and Rodgers, they held their width pretty well, but weren't supplied with the ball early enough.
Yeah.
You need 2 out-and-out wingers when teams bank up like that, and you need to move the ball quickly to isolate them one-on-one and let them go and do their magic, you know. And I think Madueke certainly done that, you know, and give us a lift in that respect.
You'll get to see some old mates tonight. I know they're giving out legacy caps, in some cases to the families of players no longer with us, like Larry Lloyd and Trevor Francis, but Gary Birtles will be there, Steve Hodge, Neil Webb, Colin Cooper, Steve Stone. So a few old faces for you, Stu, tonight. Yeah,
I hadn't actually realised that until you mentioned it just a while back on your show. And they'll be fantastic to see, and that, you know, they'll be massively honoured. And it's brilliant certainly for me to go back to one of my old hunting grounds and see that and bump into hopefully 1 or 2 people connected with England and Forest. Fantastic. Finally, the England pod today, our producer David Walker does an England podcast, and they had Daniel Storey on, the journalist who's a big Forest fan. And they were talking about whether Brian Clough would have been a good England manager. You played under him, Stuart. What would you think that would have been like? Straightforward answer from me on this one: yes for the players, no for the hierarchy at the FA. Trust me on that one. Well, you think he would have been a great manager in terms of getting out there and getting success for the team? Well, he would have ruffled a few feathers on the journey. You know, that's the nature of him. But he knew the game brilliantly. He managed to get some dog average players, the best out of them, and I include myself in that statement. And to be fair, he'd have done exactly the same with a better quality player around him, you know. But listen, the FA and the hierarchy, I think they saw the writing on the wall there and thought, you know what, we'd end up having to get, you know, the train up back from games when he told you ain't getting on my aeroplane.
We'll hear from you tonight. We'll also hear from you tomorrow. You're going to be with Adrian at St George's Park. You got an hour sit down with Thomas Tuchel. Let's hope he's in a good mood after a good performance tonight.
Well, listen, we'll butter him up. Don't worry, trust me on that one. Really looking forward to that. I think it'll be a fantastic show. The bottom line is we've got him for a full hour, and it's not directly after a game where he's just talking about game. We might be able to dig a little bit deeper about his personality and his likes, dislikes, all of those type of things. I've not met him before, so I'm really looking forward to it.
And finally, commiserations as a Warrington fan on the Challenge Cup of the weekend. Undone at the death. They put in a shift, but it can't. You kind of felt as the game went on, it was coming from KR, wasn't it? Really.
Well, they were pushing a little bit, but I felt reasonably comfortable. I watched the entirety of the game just prior to our game kicking off. And when you consider they went over the line, they beat us in the last minute, and I had to give up a Wembley trip for what come next, the Andorra. It wasn't a pleasant day.
Oh, well. We'll hear from you later, Stu. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Stuart.
Take care, gents. Good to talk.
Stuart.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.